بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, from tomorrow Fajr Salah will be starting, or Fajr Iqamah will be at 4:50. Inshallah, from tomorrow Fajr Salah will be at 4:50, 10 minutes earlier. No longer at 5 o'clock. Inshallah, from tomorrow Fajr Salah will be at 4:50. Yesterday we began with the etiquettes within the home. We discussed various different etiquettes with regards to entering and leaving the home. Now etiquettes within the home. We started off with how one should remove their shoes. The next etiquette that Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahimahullah mentions is that of choosing a seat, a place to sit after entering the home of your host. He mentions, do not argue with your host regarding the place where he wants you to sit. Rather, you should sit where he asks you to sit. If you sit where you want to, then you may accidentally look into a private area of the house, or you may accidentally cause inconvenience to the housemates. Therefore, it's important to adhere to the suggestion of your host and accept his cordial treatment towards you. And in fact, we don't even have to wait for him or her to tell us where to sit, but rather we can ask them from the beginning. When walking in, you can stand perhaps and then ask them, where would you like me to sit, or would it be appropriate for me to sit over here? And generally, many a times as a host, we should, ask our guests to sit and perhaps direct them to a specific place to sit. Hafiz ibn Kathir rahimahullah has recorded in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya the following narration when the very honored companion Sayyiduna Adi ibn Hatim radiyallahu anhu, when he accepted Islam and he came to see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in Medina Munawwara, then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam honored him. He honored him by seating him on a cushion whilst he himself sat on the floor. Sayyidina Adi radiyallahu anhu, he narrates the incident and he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he then took me along, and upon reaching his house, he took a leather cushion filled with palm fibers and he tossed it to me. After he tossed it to me, then he told me, sit on this. Then I said, no. Rasulullah said, ijlis ala hadha. He said, la, bal anta fajlis alayha. He was like, no, I can't sit on this. How am I going to sit on this cushion? You're not sitting on any cushion. No, ya Nabi of Allah, please you sit on the cushion. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again said, no, you sit on it. So then I listened to the command and the instruction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he sat on the cushion. This reminds me also, once when going to the house of Mawlana Harun Abbas Umar rahimahullah, my teacher's father, then he taught us one etiquette, subhanallah. When going there, it was now time to eat, so we all sat on the floor, me, his father, me, him, himself, and his son, and one other friend of mine. And then now it was time to eat, the food was brought, and then so I took the spoon, and I took his plate, and I asked him, Hazrat, can I please put some food for you? And he got very upset. Then he said, no, it's my job to serve you. It's my job to serve you. And then I was like, no. And then he got upset, quite upset. He didn't get very upset, but he was very stern. And then he said, this is part of the etiquette of the host, that it's my duty to serve you. Are you trying to deprive me of any reward? Subhanallah. And we see this also in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when it came to hosting others, then he would grant them so much more preference over himself. And he would ensure that they are taken care of. Once, on another incident, Sayyiduna Kharija ibn Zayd rahimahullah visited Imam ibn Sirin rahimahullah. And he found Ibn Sirin rahimahullah sitting on the floor by a cushion. And he also wanted to sit with him on the floor. This guest that came, he didn't want to sit on the cushion, he didn't want to be honored. So then he told him, I am content as you are. Meaning, I can also sit on the floor just as well as you can sit on the floor. I don't need this cushion. Then Ibn Sirin, rahimahullah, he replied, in my home, I do not prefer for you what I prefer for myself. Rather, I prefer much better, since you deserve to be honored as a guest. Then he mentions that another etiquette, Shaykh Abdul Fattah rahimahullah mentions, when taking a seat, he said, specifically, do not sit on the host's seat unless he asks you to do so. Generally in our homes, at least in my house, then my father has a particular chair, my mother has a particular chair that she generally sits at on the table, or generally when there is any family discussions. And many people have this, or this is the father's seat, or this is the grandfather's seat in the house. So we should also be very particular and very careful so that we do not sit on the seat of which is normally the head of the household seat or a respectable person's seat. And in order to do so, the only way to find out is by asking the host again, where should I sit? If he directs you there, then there's nothing wrong with that. But in a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, لا يؤمن الرجل الرجل في سلطانه ولا يقعد في بيته على تكريمته إلا بإذنه. He mentions that no guest should lead the host in salah whilst in the home of the host. No guest should lead the host in salah while in the home of the host, neither should he sit without consent at the designated seat of the host. Again, this is all without consent. So subhanAllah, there's two etiquettes here. One is, it's not appropriate for anyone else to lead inside of someone else's house unless he obviously asks, perhaps you can so-and-so please lead the salah, or something like that. And similarly, the second etiquette that we learn is a person should be very careful so as to avoid sitting on the seat of which is generally the seat of the host. It's his honorable place. He then mentions a last etiquette with regards to etiquettes within the home. He says this etiquette is with regards to becoming an inspector. He says, when you enter the home of your brother or friend, whether as a visitor or an overnight guest, do not closely examine its contents as an inspector would. When a person comes into the house, then it's not our job to go and investigate all the various different corners. This is what animals do. If you look at a cat, subhanAllah, my sister just had a cat recently. In the home, any house you take it to, it explores everywhere first. It first has to go and explore every nook and corner that's available, and then it'll come back to the normal main hall, or then it'll go off on its way. So as human beings, this is not our job. We are just to sit where we are told to be where we are told to sit, where we are seated, and we should not have any further inspections, and especially if a person is a guest at someone else's house, not just a temporary guest, but perhaps a temporary guest who's going to stay a few days, perhaps in a specific room, then we shouldn't check through all the drawers, through the cupboards, etc. We should just limit ourselves to what we have been given, limit ourselves to our own belongings. He mentions, limit your gaze during your stay to what you need to see. Do not open closets or boxes. Do not inspect any wallets, packages, or covered objects. This is completely against Islamic manners and an impolite betrayal of the trust your host has accorded to you by allowing you to enter his home and reside therein. Be polite, for this would cultivate love and respect for you in the heart of your host. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all and take care of us all. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.